It's my pleasure to introduce you to Cecilia Boschini. She's a researcher in post-quantum cryptography working in the security and data privacy team at IBM Research.
To talk about cryptography, we need some ground rules. First, when I say cryptography, I do not mean cryptocurrencies. They do use cryptography to guarantee the security of the transactions, but cryptography is much more than that. Second, cryptography is a science, and as such, it requires proofs. Math always trumps instincts and intuition. Great, so let's dive in. What's cryptography? Cryptography studies how to design protocols to protect ourselves and our data. And such protocols are everywhere. Whenever you're browsing the internet, you're using some of these cryptographic protocols to protect your data. For example, when you want to work remotely, you use a program to connect to your company's intranet that's called VPN. What the VPN does is using some of these cryptographic protocols to establish a secure connection channel between you and your company to preserve the confidentiality of the data you exchange. So, how can I use cryptography to mitigate my security-related anxiety? So let's think. As a user, what I worry about the most is not having control of my data. How can I know who has access to my data if, for example, every employee of my credit card company can see all my credit card transactions? I mean, those guys probably know me better than my mom. But unfortunately, I cannot just refuse to share my data with them. But maybe it's not necessary for everybody to have access to it. So what's the solution? Well, there are many in research, and today I would like to mention two: pseudonyms and zero-knowledge proof. Now, you might be asking yourself, I know pseudonyms from literature. The famous American author Mark Twain is a pseudonym for someone Clemens. And that's right, and we're using the same idea in cryptography. So, about a year ago, Rabobank contacted IBM and asked him for help to comply to GDPR, the European regulation for data protection. As a bank, they have huge tables with their clients' data. And different departments need access to it for the bank to function properly. So how can you limit access to that data without impacting the bank's processes? Well, the solution we found was simply to substitute all their clients' names with the Latin names of flowers and their addresses with animals. OK, I can see you don't believe this is a solution, but let's ponder for a second. So assume you have this big table with all your client sensitive data, and you want to share it among different people without impacting your client's privacy. So how can you do it? A simple trick is to scatter the data into unlinkable pieces using pseudonyms by splitting it into different tables in which your clients would appear under a different pseudonym for each table. For example, we could have, let's say, a first table with your client transactions, where your client Alice is appearing under a first pseudonym, and then a second table, let's say with your client addresses, where Alice appears under a second pseudonym, and then a third table where both pseudonyms are linked back to Alice. In this way, the data looks real, for example, for a computer to run analytics on it, but without the third table, it's harder to violate your client's privacy. It's hard to be a cryptographer these days. As I already told you, I work at the IBM Research lab in Zurich. And besides the people working there, there is something else really cool in this lab. a quantum computer. I've seen it a couple of times, and it's fascinating. Whenever I'm in the room, staring at all the mysterious hardware, I feel as I were in the 60s, staring at the first IBM mainframes. So why am I talking about the quantum computer? Well, because the cybersecurity of the future starts from the quantum computer. And now, to understand this, let's go back to cryptography. How are cryptographic protocols built? Well, in the olden days, people would devise, let's say, secure protocols by constructing very complex-looking algorithms or machinery to encrypt messages. And security would come from the fact that all these algorithms would look like just impossible to understand. But now, later on, with the introduction of computers and the development of computer science, the scenario changed. Suddenly, it was possible to rigorously analyze these algorithms and break them using the computing powers of computers. It was clear that just messing around with algorithms was not enough anymore. We needed a more mathematical approach to security. And that's how cryptography was born. Essentially, the idea is that if we want to guarantee the security of a crypto system, like logging in to your online banking account, we need a mathematical security proof. That is a convincing logical argument that says breaking the scheme and recovering our personal information is equivalent to solve some really, really difficult mathematical problem, like factoring this huge number. As long as this problem is hard to solve, the crypto system is secure and our data is safe. How safe exactly? Well, the security of current cryptographic protocols is based on problems that are extremely hard to solve, that would take ages to solve, even for somebody that has access to the most powerful computer existing today. So, to summarize, the security of our current infrastructure is based on problems that are extremely hard to solve. So hard that people thought it was safe to assume that nobody could ever crack them. Yeah, not so fast. If the current pace at which quantum computers are being developed stays the same, I'm confident in saying that these so-called hard problems would become very solvable in the not-so-distant future. I can feel my anxiety rise again. Suddenly, whatever we said until now does not sound that reassuring anymore. Well, but this can be also an opportunity. Because until now, people have constructed cool services and smart gadgets, taking into consideration only basic security, and often forgetting about privacy. And then when later vulnerabilities would come up, they had to patch up their systems, impacting efficiency and usability. So now that we have to update our security protocols, why not to do things right from the beginning? So, great. How do we build quantum-safe cryptography? You're going to think. Well, the question is quite complex, but the simplified answer is that as security relies on the hardness of solving some mathematical problems, we need problems that are hard to solve with a quantum computer. Now, there are different candidates, all with very scary-looking names, like systems of multivariate equations or isogenies over elliptic curves. And one of the most promising candidates are lattices. Now, I need another disclaimer here. Lattices are a quite complex mathematical object, so I will have to talk about math. Now, I know this sounds dangerously boring and extremely scary. So I just want to reassure you before you just stand up and leave. From now on, you will not see any formula on the slides, only a lot of points. Great. So let's dive in. Well, you can imagine a two-dimensional lattice as a grid of points. Once you have this grid, a lattice problem requires you to find the point in the grid that is the closest to a fixed central point in the space called the origin. So in 2 dimensions, this is easy to solve, as you can just draw the grid of points and immediately see which one is the closest to the origin. So to have a hard problem, we need to increase the number of dimensions. So if we step up to 3, we get a grid that fills the entire space. But still, finding the problem, the point that is the closest to the origin, it's easy, as you can just see which one is the closest to the origin, and there are not that many points close to the origin anyway. We are hard at work developing quantum-safe cryptographic protocols for future IBM commercial offerings, including IBM Z, blockchain, and storage solutions. More precisely, IBM researchers expect to have a working demonstration of quantum-safe storage, first for tape, by the second quarter of 2019. And IBM Services offers a quantum assessment for clients to assess their exposure for sensitive data platform. If you have data that needs to be secure 20, 30 years from now, well, you should start thinking about quantum-safe cryptography today. So if you have time, drop by our booth, or contact your client representative, or just drop me an email. And remember, prevention is always better when it comes to security. Thank you.